welcome everyone to another episode about why shallograms are not fossils. So I probably have like 15 shallograms that I took some more pictures from the same shop as I exhausted all of the photos now. I probably at a later time, if this continues to happen, would return back to the their listings, especially because they have new ones pretty regularly that are frequently pretty cool. And but like see if new thoughts that emerge resonate with ones that I looked at in the past and didn't really feel drawn to take screenshots of. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts. Anyway, so this one we see again. This is common where just a feature is just absent, but it's formed over here. But it's also kind of subtle and relatively absent, as if it's not actually induced in its totality, where the currents that were flowing, because that's how we're analyzing these as being caused by currents, the currents that were flowing just didn't change like this material here, so it really just looks like the fossil explanation would be the shell was broken or something of that nature. So like it is just missing, but like what about here? It was the shell was like subtly fragmented so that its presence was detectable, but only in a subtle way versus other instances. Like it doesn't really make complete sense. Okay, let's move on though. This one, I'm not sure what exactly about this one. I just took pictures, so some of them will be less like, whoa, look at this one than others. Some of them are like, at least like five of them. I'm like, these disprove science. Each one of these really, really disprove science. But some of them, it's more just like supplemental. Okay, so let's see. This is kind of interesting. Like it looks like the shallogram feature there. This here, like, actually looks like it keeps going this way in like a much more jagged way, which is also more like hexagonal bends, regular angles that are angles present in polygonal shapes of like regular polygonal shapes. That seems to just be a tendency to happen. So maybe like this energy wrapped around the stone physically all the way around, kind of like this one, how it starts on this side of the stone and then just wraps all the way around, where like a positive and negative lobes connect energetically and then just overlap. So kind of like, and by positive and negative I mean they tend to be, if I can find a good one, just a more like typically formed one that just shows the two lobes. Maybe this is fine, like a positive, like a bigger one, or negative, however, whichever angle we see it from. And then a smaller one, negative or positive. That one's maybe not the best. Like here we go. This one, like it's a smaller lobe but larger, so it just tends to have that like imbalance in the lobes. Here, like a smaller, larger, smaller, larger. Some of them more balanced, perhaps. Smaller, larger, smaller, larger. smaller, larger, or smaller, larger, depending on if we account for like the, like it's almost like it's in the process of becoming like this by current flows, but it still has the material in there. So it's kind of got like the small, so essentially it goes small, large, but really it's just one continuous like growing, coiling, wrapping around current kind of thing that starts small here, gets larger this when it gets around here, but then when it gets back over here it's even larger, and then when it gets over here it's even larger still. So it just like cycles in that manner. Okay, you guys get the point, hopefully. The small, large, okay. So maybe that's going on here. This is also on the rock. Stone, whatever. Small, large again. Don't know what to make of it. It's kind of suggestive of a current going right through this stretch of it, maybe. And then, like, flows that were more maybe across. But as generally we're overwhelmed by this, and also even spiraled like a essentially met resistance spiraled because of it, and then that just continued to apply a current this way, maybe, kind of thing, like at the lowest level of the stone, while above that level like an overcurrent was just sculpting out the material, maybe. We can even maybe associate like these things with like these features that tend to be on shallograms that go almost like little etchings along the stone, like where it's not, like we can kind of see them here. Sometimes they're more apparent. Another picture of the stone. Looks like this one going the other way has this subtle feature here, so it does seem like it's wrapping around towards the other side of the stone, maybe. This is, I believe, the base, like the bottom below here. This is a different one. Did we? I don't think I have the back side of it. Okay, they may have. Looks like this one actually wraps down. This goes down and across, maybe? Down and across. I don't know if it's related to this. Maybe. Okay, so the next one. This is the shop title here, Rudraksh. Okay. Another one with a smaller and larger, and then larger still, cycling. I don't know what to make of this exactly. It's interesting. This one I wanted to take a picture of, I remember, because it had this, and it reminded me of this shallogram that I keep referring to. I've been saying essentially that it caved in here. Like the feature itself, while the stone was still malleable, it physically bent and then it hardened. Because this stone is like one unit, it's just hardened after bending. So it had this moment in time when it was just malleable and something pressed into the surface. Basically, like one of these is my interpretation, pressed into it, or it pressed into it, whatever. So in some way, the pressure was applied, and that shaped this to be indented and then caved in here. So I'm not sure if this is indented at all, but it kind of gave me that feeling here. Like maybe there was like a general pushing, and maybe it even caused the current to flow like a lava flow, or like a pus, like an oozing of material, because it was still fluid to a degree because of the conditions when it was still in the process of being formed, and heat, pressure, water, all of the ingredients that made it so that this was like held firm together but able to be pressed into, maybe, and then like energetically released through this path a current of just like the material in here, almost like a gushing, a gusher. That's the bottom, I guess. And then another one. I'm not sure if we can see through this. I don't think so. So it has some interesting colors. It really looks like it is that this here, there. So maybe it is visible through it. This is certainly visible through to a degree, like, but not underneath through it. But maybe here. You can kind of see those striations in this. And then some other stuff going on that may or may not be. Those features. I didn't know what to make of this. This was interesting. Looks like a bird's head. Whoa. Could it be a bird's head? Mount Girnar? I'm just thinking if, like, it looks like a bird head because there's current flows related to it that are like Mount Girnar. I see this, which is kind of interesting. Because I was thinking, if it looks like Girnar, like, if then this is kind of like maybe like Gir National Forest region of Sarastra. I know. Just let me say it. And then this is like the undercrust beneath Sarastra, maybe. And this is kind of like below Girnar. And then this is like the beak at modern day Dwarka, which in this instance broke away, but in the case of Sarastra is still present. And a current like went up to a boundary and swirled in some way. And then maybe if this is like this, where they were together, but then it kind of opened and spread, then maybe this current was coming more like this way through this and this, but then it like broke off the side, and like it was coming through this way, and then this side started to like fan out so that it maybe just thoughts, I don't know, before I like start looking at the rock and see what other there's definitely opening going on. I totally forgot about that. Had a hinge point kind of thing down here, which is maybe that. Not sure. Maybe That looks like a shark's mouth. That's all that one, I guess. I thought it was cool, but I just was like, I don't know why, like what I could take from it. But I thought of it looking like a bird had not occurred to me. Had that occurred to me, I'd be like, okay, what could I glean from this if it's possible? So maybe I would have, I'm pretty sure there's at least one more image of this. Okay. Thought this was kind of interesting. Kind of UFO shaped looking thing. If there's some kind of technology that either requires a shape or induces a shape, I don't know, then it would kind of make sense. Some advanced technology of UFOs would potentially have a shape that's kind of like related to the fundamental processes of the nature of reality. And because of its relationship, just demonstrates it can't be done without the actual physics and the physical processes being manifest in essence. And so, like, it would make sense that it almost be required to look a certain way, kind of like how cars tend to like have to have more than one wheel. Like, it'd be kind of confusing if a car had just one wheel. You know, guys, we should probably have more points of contact for that vehicle. 4 seemed pretty reasonable, so then a lot of cars just look like that, and then we add some more for bigger cars, a few less for smaller, and but 1 is, they tend to have a pattern, and so maybe UFOs also, because of their nature, tend to have a pattern, more so than just like because like the designers like that shape. Obviously, people are aware of the shape's relevance and contemplating it, but just noting it in the rock. Okay, let's go on. This also branches off from seemingly maybe around here, which also if passes this point to generally go around here. It also goes this way, which runs actually into this point, the very tip here of this one. Like, this is no coincidence. That it runs into the tip of this one, and then because a current's involved, the current seemingly went this way and did not go here where it might have otherwise. And so it didn't carve this segment out as much as it would have, and so instead it goes this way to a degree and interacts with this system, with this system, with this system, with this system, with this system. And then this even has like seemingly maybe a larger lobe that maybe even is somewhat related to this, or this boundary that kind of goes through here. Other side of the same stone. This one would probably be good to have simultaneously. Okay, so this UFO segment is kind of this chunk at the protruding, and then it's got the long segment. And then the elongated segment is kind of missing. This is where the action seems to be, I guess. Where over here, interesting, I did not realize when I was saying that, even though I just seen it, I just didn't even think to compare until I went back. This one's Focusly has all the features on the elongated side. Opposite over here, almost starting related to this. This one I found interesting because the top. Where is the top? It has a sphere here at a chakra. And then really distinctly, like obviously it had some type of structure here, but like the top is seemingly just blown away by one of the layers of this sphere being stripped away, like a larger layer that's no longer there, that's now just scattered. Took the overlaying chakra and just snapped that chunk off when, presumably, when like a nova type thing was going on pretty heavily, because this thing was like coated in gold, nuances of gold, colorations. This going on, this is very common in those four positions, even though it's more so here, we can kind of see it going on there, and this one's just like abnormally influenced, showing something different was going on there than like right in this region. Interestingly, and then it spirals around and comes over to this side where it really, like, these things seemingly have spread out. Like the positive negative, like a single positive negative that begins to spread out and interact with other ones, and then mix maybe, because like maybe this is a positive negative, like positive negative because of the density maybe. I don't know the like that type of information about these stones with like in terms of which is more dense, like the base stone or the materials. I'm pretty sure it's the base stone is more dense. Tail side opening showing. Okay, this is the same one, this one. So we see this, which I believe is here. I believe, no, maybe. It's gotta have like a really straight broken segment that this doesn't have. So maybe it's here. There's not. I guess this is what we're looking at there. Is this, and then in here. So above it, we can kind of see there's another chakra, like up here. Okay, tail side opening. I guess I could just look at the names. Head side opening. Head side opening with two circular marks. Maybe this. And maybe just this as a whole. I don't know. Maybe this too. It's just so smooth. can also see right here this line. I've talked about this a lot, where there's this tendency for the chakras to align not from here, but from like a point at the boundary where the chakra goes to. Like if there's another chakra here that goes in this direction, like it's gonna align with right here, not like down here. It's gonna align with like right there and go this way. So that's interesting. I've never seen a really distinct feature like that that kind of suggests a flow in that manner in any way. Don't see it here. I think that's that, right? Must be there. It doesn't look the same at all. Maybe it's just there. It's crazy. Crazy. Okay. I think I took 2 pictures of this then. Okay, the next one. This one I was like, what is going on here? It looks like this shalagram, or this chakra here, continues out this way, maybe, but it also has this... like it's opposite here. Like, maybe? No. I think it's part of this, okay. Going around this way. But then here is for sure a separation, but then this one just goes right up to it. Just right up to it. That's a single opening having 2 circular mark. Single circular mark on tail's side. First opening having 2 circular marks is this one. We can kind of see it a little narrower and a little wider here. Maybe a little narrower, a little wider also. How incredible. So that is what, right here? I guess that's right here. Just right there, and then off to the side, that one. Which is spiraling around directly underneath it, like energetically. But like, if that's there, if this is here, what is this? That's not even centered on it. That's just a... that's like a chakra going with lines above it. Like, that's not typical. This thing just has lines above it, not a focal point. Focal point maybe on this layer, I guess. So this layer, but then directly above it are lines. So another system that was generally maybe here forming, but just this is all it managed to do. Maybe with a circle forming like there. That even has a channel to it. Flow this way. Like if there's a flow around this way, causing this maybe to spin this way, like, because this is spinning. Like literally a current that's spinning here that's interacting with the top here, creating another like spinning type current that starts to etch the stone. And then as it's spinning, I guess it comes to a very boundary, like it spins this way, presumably then, from here this way. But then it's creating a boundary, like as it's kind of like the snake game, exactly like the snake game. As the current moves, it produces a boundary, a boundary, a boundary, and then it reaches a boundary and just deflects around the boundary. So maybe this, there's like a general current going around this way, but also maybe more across too, from like here to here, and this way. Up this, a roundedness, like the roundedness of the rock. I don't know. Generally though, if the current comes in here, meets a pressure, let's pull up some gambling. Portal, this one. This is reminding me of right about here. Alright, it's got this line, this boundary, a general boundary. So what I believe happened was, in this case, is a current flowing this way from the mantle puncture hole over here, flowing this way, following this way, producing a boundary along generally here at that time, flowing this way, at least in part of the current is. Some of it also just flows out this way, but the current we're focusing on in relationship to this system is flowing this way, up here, and then across this way, up this way, back into, across this way, down through here, into here, up through here, back down across, all over the place, and then down this way also, like, so it also comes down here, but then it basically runs into resistance here, forming this kind of pocket region, where it also comes in here, fills this region, which causes the Siberian traps here, generally speaking, which seems to have, like, produced sort of, like, arrow-shaped features out of it even, maybe. I don't know. Like, petals. Flower petals. But so here, though, what I believe happened is a current came across, ran into resistance of this current, maybe bowed it out a bit, but then came up this way. And it's also coming through this way, so, like, it split, went two ways here, producing this boundary. The current that went this way ran along this boundary that didn't get in here because this pressure filled, and then it went around this way, ran into that current, and basically ran into the broken current and created this boundary, came back and spiraled in here to produce like a nova center, kind of a chakra. So it was basically leading to the production of a chakra by the entrapment of currents under pressure. Okay, so that made me think of this. That's what I'm saying, with this straight line, and then it seems to have ran into resistance. So maybe in this instance, Let's say a current, if we can find a pathway like here, I might be wanting it to be this way, but I believe that it would make sense is why I was immediately looked for it. It was because of this. It suggests there's a current that was going this way, but then another current that generally is sourced from over here that kind of combines. Instead of separating, they do the opposite in this way and combine and carve into the stone along these channels, but also bow out this current and cause this also in a similar manner to how this is passing through here and bowing out and doing this. That's my thoughts, is that kind of makes sense, whereas fossils make no sense for why this is here. This is just here by erosion plus time plus coincidence. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Mike just wants to fly off. I slap it off. Correct me if I'm... And what? But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Coincidence in terms of fossilization, that's how we would explain this. Erosion, coincidence, maybe some fossils might grow, I'm thinking. Some kind of other species of something that we need to explain these things, but ultimately not through a lens of currents still, because we need to explain this kind of thing, maybe not this one specifically. Certainly we haven't explained this one specifically, but that's not necessary if we scientifically, if we have explained the phenomenon. I don't think we've explained the phenomenon. My guess is it's just straight up time, erosion, coincidence, geological processes. Nothing of any real, like, actual substance, just words. When we bring coincidence into science and deem that it's sufficient, like the universe, like, get that mic away, stop telling them everything, stop it. It's meant to stay in the stones, you fool. Gandalf would be disappointed in me. I don't know, I said Gandalf, but small, large, somewhat similar, actually. Interesting, these two. Although this one's not carved out yet, it still looks like kind of it would have a similar shape. And then this is interesting. We see really distinct this side. These are going this way. These are going like opposite, kind of, with almost like a balance around here. It's presumably where this and this, these are generally meeting. Really distinct right there. And then it goes this way, like just straight down, which is we've seen in the past, although this whole thing does. These little ammonites in a row. Ammonites in a row. Maybe. A lot of cool things going on here. Features that I believe, correct me again if I'm wrong, we do not deem to be fossils like this. I don't think we call these fossils. I think we would just call this time plus erosion plus coincidence. These features are of the same nature as these features, which are what we would deem to be fossil caused, fossil induced. So to not call these fossil induced, it doesn't really make sense. So we almost have to say they're fossil induced, but then they're clearly not. Although interestingly, this one does kind of do that like larger polygon thing off of maybe a chakra down here. We'll see. That seems to kind of go up this way, like maybe even up over here and this way, but like potentially to like that boundary. And the way they do that, get larger and further out. Larger and further out, maybe, where it's energetically coupled. Almost assuredly they're like able to be mapped that way, where it's like, yes, they were energetically coupled in their formation. Over here, that looks to be the location that this is moving towards. We see that. Tail size single circular. Tail side view, single circular. So it moves that way. We can see the lines moving this way, but then they deflect at the boundary of this that's forming, where it's not quite as able to get into this region, I guess, though it is influencing the whole spiral as much as it can. This looks interesting. We can really distinctly see that this spiral branches off this way. Not a fossil. Not a fossil. Kind of going on over here. I don't know if that's what these are related to. I'm not saying this. Maybe another lobe outward. It probably is this a general like vortex that's kind of happening here. Maybe even like where a current flows in, it hits a stone and spirals because the stone is elongated. It like wraps around the stone and spirals and begins to produce like bands around the stone that then thread enough in specific, look like it's the current across it all, but the bands that form are in specific locations that are the most like energetic current paths that then actually can like push down into the stone enough to basically sculpt it. So I'd say that's probably going on, and maybe even that's why these lines are there, is because generally the current was going across this, like this way. And dividing maybe like this, but also I don't know where it comes across. It goes across this way, and then it like physically wraps around the stone, and then the current collides with itself and produces eddies. Like, but it's all under so much pressure that it's held against the stone where these currents are happening. Like, it requires a high pressure. That's over there, and then over this way. So again, we see very much like along that axis. We'll see if the backside is also along that axis, which it would seemingly be if the current is focusedly coming into like this location and then being distributed throughout the stone, where it collides and produces eddies into the stone in this manner at different locations because of the wrapping aspect of the current under pressure. This even has like a bend in it back towards this system. Maybe not the whole distance, the whole distance too. Back towards it. Back towards whatever's going on there. It's probably the last one. Let's see how many we got. Okay. Same side again with the current going over. It looks like even in like a ricotta structure kind of way. Like where the mound is, there's a mound of elevated material. The current flows on both sides of it, but not atop it as much, where it's detectable. Oh yeah, my mouse works now. I'm like, well, I just scroll, at this point I just scroll out indefinitely until it finds what I'm trying to scroll to, but, oh yeah. Current, this, like, so basically, one current, generally speaking, coming across this way. And then it divides around this elevated region. Kind of like here. This looks like it's physically a mound protruding outward relative to the rest, like that. Like it physically is like preferentially directed around it. Maybe there's one in this region too. Doesn't look like there. That's not the same place as I was looking. That's right, this is the other side. The other side of the stone also has this. So this looks like... I'm trying to figure out which side has that chakra on it. I think it's this side with the chakra. It's hard to say. Let's open two of them. $183. Okay, what is going on? This looks like it's down here. Opposite side. So this is maybe opposite over there and beneath. Current comes in this way. Wraps around. This makes me think the current's going this way because it's like folding this. And seemingly has an entry point there that I was getting in a channel. Okay, as cool as this one is, I really don't know what else to say about it right now. Except several features that really demonstrate it cannot be caused by fossilization. Like this, I didn't mention that. This thing looks like it's pretty much in line with the other. I guess I closed it. The other one. This here. It's on screen. I'm not gonna do it again. In line with this, when they were adjacent, it kind of looked. Oh. I'm gonna do it again, sorry. There we go. Is that even the right side, though? It's so hard to tell. I don't think it's clear. I just don't think it's clear. Maybe we can tell from this. This has got to be. Right here. It's just got to be right there, opposite this way. So. Right. No better angles of that side. Darn. That's the best angle of the side. I think this is there, but it's hard to say. It almost looks like it's inverse, so maybe not. Maybe it's over here. Down this way. Or down here. Like the opposite of this one. So maybe this one is possible. Connects through to this like lobe system that then goes across here, and then goes up this way in line with those. And then this sort of energetically interacts. It's like two lobes, but also a chakra at one of the lobes, which is pretty interesting. Don't know what to say about that. So then this chakra would be, if this lobe would be over here, maybe underneath this location. If this goes here across this way to this way, and then that way is like this, and down under this way. Does that make sense? Is that even geometrically possible? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, it's good. Maybe I can rotate it that way. So if it just folds forward. So like this goes this way, and maybe even goes around this way to this boundary that then is related to this system's boundary. This way. And then it looks like maybe even multiple currents holding a boundary here. Okay, let's go on. Let's just move on though. This one I thought was interesting because it looks almost like it's like melting or like very. It gives me the impression of like some kind of like a plastic melting, like resealing of the stone by just some process where it was in a different stage in the process than like this one. It doesn't have like it's more. This is more like a stone that's been etched into look. This one looks more like a stone that's been etched into, but then it has like a layer of fresh material coating it in a way somehow where it was recoded. Maybe it even did form more like this, where like different, it's layered. Maybe these currents are potentially bringing material that can coat and can not coat, and depending on at which time in the process, I don't know. Lots of little bumps and things. I don't know what to make of them. They kind of have like the triple shallogram feature, like this over here. This shallogram feature, one here. There's also one here, 1, 2, and then here, where this is like at elevation above sea level, but it's still like high, medium, low. High elevation, so low depth, medium depth, high depth of the water in this region. And that just systematically happens where there's like high, medium, low, like positive, neutral, negative, positive, separator, negative. Some things of that nature that just form energetically, systematically. That kind of gave me that feeling here. I don't know, maybe this is like high, medium, low in terms of elevation relative. So this is like the greatest depth. Okay, this one looks interesting. Probably not much I'll say on this stone. That looks just not quite shaped right. Like it's shaped shallogram like, but it's not whatsoever a shell. It's just like it was hit by a current that like specifically functioned in a way. Okay. Same stone, cooler side of it. Okay, we're seeing more of those beams that we keep running into. Looking features. Another opening also with like a sharp break in the boundary. It's not really erosion. Like this also looks like it was kind of indented right here. Like just kind of fractured inward because of space that this formed and pressure that fractured inward, and then it just kind of froze as it was released from the pressure and temperature and conditions. This is the bottom face of the stone. Very cool. Small, like chakra region, and then larger ones. I don't know. This looks kind of like an inlet that deflects away. I don't know. This one I found really interesting because of the shape it takes. Like, it's too regular. Shallograms are too regular in shape to not be fully shaped by the same process that made the regular shape of the shallogram in the first place. Also must have been the same process that made the regular shape of the fossil. The stones are too regular, so like it doesn't really make sense for the chakras to be at nodes, like at the points. Like, it's kind of weird how things tend to happen. Just regular. So my thought was kind of like it was pushing into something that it wrapped around and like came in one way with a more flat surface, maybe even rounded outward like this way, and then hit it and bowed in. Became more like a V shape, and in some way there's a pressure that did that to the stone that then induced currents through the stone out this way and that way. Although I'm not sure if there's anything going on over that side. There's at least whatever's that going on, I think. Although that may be this side also. Hard to say. Okay, this one I found really interesting because of it's just one of those what are the odds things. That there is a chakra of a ammonite, a fossil, just fossils resting on one another, atop one another, centered down the axis of this system, pretty much. It doesn't really make sense for fossils to do that. This makes sense for currents. This is so cool. Not fossils. Just go through these. This one I thought really interesting. Another regular shape that's got like this just, it's like painted on. Like, how is this not part of the formation of the fossil? That this shape has, it's just too regular. The non-fossil aspect of it. Like, how incredible. It starts out narrow, gets wider. At the center of this bulging matrix that it happened to just form in. Nonsense, dudes. Nonsense. Most ammonites are found like this. This is how ammonites are found, in a matrix. And then that matrix is chipped off, it's sanded off, it's polished off. They take this material off and then expose the fossil for ammonites. But in shallograms, this material is just part of them. Materially, fundamentally one with, not separate. This flow is not reasonable. For fossils, it's not reasonable. Oh yeah, it's just paintbrush stroked on there just systematically in cool ways. And just exposed. Like fossils should not be systematically. So cool. Shock right here. Like, what? Subtle, yet, like, whoa. Energetically forming at this boundary. This chakra reaches up to the boundary. This spiraling energy that was here reached up to the boundary of this spiraling energy that was here and spiraled here. Probably off of it, like this was probably spiraling, which then was inducing probably a spiral this way. Just based on her. This. Yeah, this is going this way. This top one goes counterclockwise, so this one was probably rotating clockwise. Like a current was going this way, around, 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 but some of it went down through this and around and around and around here. Some of it went around and out this way through these channels. Generally coming down in, I guess, along these and breaking in here and spiraling, like between layers. It's almost like layers. Like there was a bunch of just like layers of shale that was still malleable, wet, under pressure, able to have currents flow through, and they did, and they shaped it, and they went through the layer, shaped the stone as a whole, but also punctured through into the next layer, and then like met resistance there where it had a vortex. Let's see, so there's the, is that this one? That can't be there. Where is that? Single circular mark. Single circular mark. Single circular over there. Tail side opening, 2 circular. Like, what is this? That's what currents do, dudes, not fossils. Fossils do not do that. That looks like a perfect circle. It's so cool how it does things of that nature. Okay, backside just chilling, not much going on seemingly. Front side, again to the boundary pretty much. So they form at each other's boundaries. I was gonna bring up a YouTube video.
On faster moving Pohoyoi flows.
Counterclockwise, clockwise.
The crust may become detached and get completely spun around on the surface of the flow. On faster moving Pohoyoi flows, the crust may become detached and get completely spun around on the surface of the flow. On fat.
It's pretty much just, so this is going also, this, notice, there's a boundary also. So it's flowing through some region. Shalograms, I don't know where they form, but they're in the Himalayas. So like maybe they form there. And like generally speaking, like the process of something of this nature was happening in the Himalayas where it wasn't magma, it was like a mud flood of shale that was flowing like this, where the current was faster.
On faster moving Pohoyoe flows, the crust may become detached.
And the crust detached, something like this, which is basically then forming shallograms by the crust detaching. I'm not sure where the pressure and inducing these currents are in this way, but in underground maybe it makes it effectively like that. Or just the water. There's probably just water
And get completely spun around.
from the flood. The global flood waters playing a part. I don't know. I mean, they formed exactly at the KT boundary. So it's probably not. It's probably a flow. Like they formed in a flow like this. And then that flow vented at the Himalayas location where they are now found as shallograms. And then they solidified just like this magma will do, and then it became solid, cooled down. At this time, like you could go up and scoop it with a scoop thing, and it's still like malleable. It's still fluid, but like this isn't fluid. This isn't fluid. Someone like, are there waves? Waves crashing. This is like a crashing wave. Whoa. What if this is like the crest of a wave crashing right here? I wonder if they tend to do this, have layers, vortices between the layers. Produce just particles with vortices in the particles. See, okay, guys. Let me see. I'll check that out later. Okay, so this one I found kind of. How many do I have left? That's it. This is the last one, guys. Okay. Just again, there's features that are just not really quite demonstrable of a fossil. Like fossils, if fossilization is real as the cause of these, I know fossilization is real, but the cause of these, if that's what happened, then they should be more similar because they're starting with the same general base materials, where it's a shell of a living creature. That like the other shells of the similar living creatures should result in a similar outcome of the fossil. Like the way the fossilization is like induced in the stone this not similar. They're all very much their own stone that don't have just the same features at all, really. Although the same, like, classes of features that can be understood through threads of understanding, like a current. They don't have the same features in, like, the way they induce the outcome on the stone. Like, this is not the same at all as this, as this, as this, as this also. But like the subtle ones, none of these are quite as subtle like these. The subtle ones, like this, like this kind of thing. They're just all different. This, specifically this kind of thing, like, this doesn't make sense. Currents can explain these things though, so that's it. Peace out.